Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds longer, just so I can see people still sort of joining as I speak. So I'll just leave it maybe another half a minute, give everybody a chance to join, and then we'll crack on. Okay, that looks like things slowing down with the joiners. So, like I said, welcome again. Thank you for joining. I know, I guess one of the things I've noticed certainly in the past year with the pandemic, that there seems to be an endless stream of webinars. And if it's not webinars, it's certainly Teams or Zoom's meetings. So I do appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to join us this afternoon, and actually that we're a little bit later than we would be usually, so that my colleague from the States can join us today. So I would encourage you all just to ask questions using the sort of question chat panel that you've got on your little GoToWebinar dashboard as we move through. Really, the format for today is going to sort of talk through, set the scene, and then we'll give you a demo of the platform. So for those of you that don't know me, and I know there are several of you on here that do, but my name's Graham Stead. I'm the Client Relationship Director here at CMI. So really what that means for me, I guess the purpose of my role really is to make sure that we keep our clients, I guess, informed and appraised of technology, and importantly, how that technology can help them improve and protect their business. And that's really one of my key roles that I have here at CMI, and that my team have with me too. I'm really pleased to welcome Marie. Marie is our channel sales manager at Rocket Cyber, who we've partnered with to provide this service. So Marie, would you maybe just like a quick intro for yourself?
Well, good day to everyone. Thank you so much, Graham, for having me today. I do appreciate it. So yes, it will be lovely to show you as far as perspective about a SOC and get a little bit more information so everyone can be a little bit more educated on the importance of a SOC. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining us. It's a bit earlier with you, so I do appreciate your time. Okay, so let's set the scene really for today. So really for those, I guess three things really, 3 or 4 things that I'd like for everybody to get out of today. And if you have, then it will certainly been a sort of a successful session from ourselves, and hopefully you'll all see that as well. So it's really, Marie's just mentioned a SOC there, which for those of you that are sort of in sort of the IT professional sort of arena, you'll probably understand what a SOC is. For the rest of us that aren't IT, we'll be thinking there's another acronym that the IT industry has just thrown at us. So really, key thing today is to really let's just, I guess, raise awareness for you as to what a SOC is. So a Security Operations Center is what that acronym stands for. Clearly the benefits that SOC can provide to your business. And towards the end, we'll, a few little, I guess, pointers to help you understand what you should be looking for when you're going through the process of selecting a SOC provider. And of course, Marie will show us through the platform. Now, of course, we've got a mixture of sort of tech and non-tech on this call today, so it's not intended to be a technical session. It's intended to provide you with an overview of what the platform does and to give you some insights into its capabilities and the protection that it's going to provide for your business. Coming back to my role, as I said, is to inform and advise. It is incredibly difficult, and it's a sort of I guess a bit of a personal frustration of mine that security. Those of us within the industry see the impact that poor security can have to businesses. So it's sometimes a little bit difficult to make sure that we're not sitting on the side of the fence that is actually, could be deemed as fear selling. That's absolutely not the intention of what we're doing today, but it is really important to emphasize how important it is that we take security seriously and we understand the threats that are out there. It frustrates me why so many businesses don't take the necessary steps until something's happened. But I guess that's human nature, isn't it? That's that rule of well, it won't happen to me, but until it does. So that's really what we're going to do today. Marie, as I mentioned before the call, just feel free if there's anything you want to add as I go through these slides. So, okay. Really, this slide is really talking about how security really and the cyber threats has changed. Yesterday's security does not equal today's cyber threats. And actually, I'd go as far as to say any organisation, any business that takes security seriously and puts the appropriate measures in place, that's actually becoming a differentiator for their businesses. So many of sort of our businesses' clients are actually now looking to make sure that their supply chain and the partners and suppliers they work with are taking it seriously. So what do we mean when we say, yesterday's security does not equal today's cyber threats? I thought maybe, I'm not sure how good this analogy is, but it's something that I thought we could all relate to. And it doesn't feel that long ago that we were all still using checks, checkbooks and physical cash to make our financial payments in our personal lives, whereas now, digital everywhere, whether it's PayPal, online banking, you could even argue, Bitcoin potentially if you wanted to go really to that extreme. But that's really happened in the last 10, 15 years, really. So in a relative short period of time. But the consequence of that is that we are always seeing the headlines of record high consumer financial fraud. Wherever you are around the globe, it's the same. So we see that in our personal lives, and whether you've been personally impacted by that or not, I'm sure we all know somebody has. I myself personally, actually just 3-4 weeks back, had a couple of £1,000 taken out of my account, which I noticed, and by the time I rang the bank, they'd identified it also, and thankfully I got the money back. But the point I'm trying to make there is that it is happening, and it's really down to the fact that we've gone from so much towards, I guess, a digital environment where it is so easy now for this information that sits there out in the ether to be accessed. Cyber threats, they're continually changing, and they do so at a sort of, well, it seems to me, just an ever increasing, relentless pace. And the challenge the security industry really has is that we're always going to be behind the curve, because yes, the security companies can predict to some extent what the cyber criminal is going to try and do next, but a large part of what they have to do is to react to actually what's happening. So there's always this this gap between the current threats and what current protection is available, and that's really what a security operations center is intended to try and close down, reduce the size of that gap. And of course, there's a couple of reference points on this slide about just cyber skill shortages. Again, it's going to be the same globally, but certainly here in the UK, for the last couple of years, governments, industry, and that's not just the sort of technology industry, but industry generally, have regularly cited that the skills gap that we have in cyber skills, particularly, is of serious concern to the government and the industries. And I guess the final point, I refer to it as the stakeholder pressures, whether that's your clients, your shareholders, your supply chain, any sort of regulatory government bodies that you need to be aligned with. All of these pressure points really are are there where we're having to demonstrate that we have taken security seriously. So why do we need a SOC? Well, I guess the challenge we have now is that over the last 5 years in particular, but we can go back towards that, is what we call sort of point services, point protection. So you have, for example, antivirus that deals with antivirus. You've got web and DNS that deals with safe web browsing. You've got Microsoft 365. You've got lots of different sort of services, security services that are actually providing protection for a particular service. Now, of course, they all log events, raise alerts to events, and there's just so many of those now. Millions of logs per day are probably being saved within your infrastructure. I just took a look at my own laptop an hour or so before here, and I've had 27,000 events logged in my security log, and the security log on my PC is just one log on my PC. So it would just give some context to the sheer number of events that need to be done. It really is a needle in a haystack, but the problem being is we don't want to miss that needle, because if we do, that's potentially where the issues start. So again, it's a sort of a similar analogy is thinking about that maybe your office to some extent. You have that office alarm, CCTV, various sensors that may be around your office, and if you have that where that's monitored, whether that's a sort of a fire or police, central monitoring for the alarm systems, just imagine that might alert 2 or 3 events per day or whatever it might be. So you extrapolate that out to the millions of events. Really got to, it's just impossible these days to actually find that needle effectively in that haystack of all these events. But what that actually causes is what we call dwell time. So that's the amount of time a bad actor could actually be within your system, within your network, without you knowing, because they've infiltrated, they found a way in, whether that's through ransomware, through maybe a breach of your exterior firewall protection, whatever it may be. They've infiltrated, but you've not identified that they've been that they're in there. And then that dwell time, I think these days, I think some of the latest stats I've seen, typically the average dwell time is about 55, 60 days. So that means they're within your organization harvesting information about whether it's your clients, about your staff, your key staff, maybe your managing director, your financial director, those key players within your business that have something they want. And a good example of this was actually just a couple of weeks ago. I was sort of reached out to by a company who had an issue. They're a small sort of local town law firm. So they had an issue a year or so back where they'd been breached through ransomware. Somebody clicked on a link. They thought they'd dealt with it, been advised, but actually just short of a year later, things started to happen. Their clients started to be contacted. What happened is they'd been in that system for a serious period of time, and were actually harvesting thousands of client email addresses and information about that as emails were flowing backwards and forwards. So I guess the real question that you need to be asking yourselves is, it's not will that happen to me, because that's really it's when it will happen and to what scale it will happen. So the real question now has to be, what would happen to your business when that happens? What about the reputation? What about the financial losses? The stress on maybe you, your staff, the time, the lost revenue, maybe any regulatory impact. So these are all things we've got to be thinking about, because it really, the problem we have now to deal with is just this sheer volume of data that is sort of presented day after day after day, and we've got to find the effective way of finding the right information that we need to act upon. So this is really where the SOC comes in. That's a security operations center. So it is effectively a center manned with humans 24/7, 365 days a year, that aggregates all of that information. It effectively sort of sucks up all of that log or that data that is generated by your infrastructure. And it sort of analyzes that. There's a lot of clever tech, a lot of AI tech, etc., that analyzes that and surfaces towards the top of those millions of records the information that actually needs to be investigated, analysed, responded to. And in a vast number of cases, it's not something that necessarily is a threat that needs any remediation or action taken, but there will on occasions be a need to take action, to isolate a device, to patch something, to trigger password changes, whatever it may be. So it really is that sort of 24/7, 365 continuous monitoring using tech, but then with human eyes analysing the stuff that the smart tech brings to our attentions, and then those human eyes take the action to move things forward. So a couple of stats here and there are, as you can imagine, lots and lots of stats. Some here, nearly half the organisations struggle with SOC staff shortages. Now, for those of you that are on this webinar and you have your internal IT teams, and you'll be very familiar with trying to recruit this skill set is incredibly difficult. For those of you that are on this session today and don't have an internal team, and that's where you work with partners like CMI, then your concern will be more around, okay, well, what do you need to do to protect that? And there may be some legitimate questions around, well, why aren't CMI already doing that? I thought that's what CMI were being paid for, which I think is a fair question. I've been asked that previously, which is where I sort of would loop back to my point around, yesterday's security isn't necessarily fit for purpose for today's security threats. We've just got to keep evolving. And another stat here that, the last one there, that, those that do provide or do take, make use of a SOC service, that they are, 50% faster, so that's reduction in dwell time, or faster to respond, or catching more threats as they work their way through. So what do we actually do? Having partnered with Rocket Cyber, there's really three key pillars. We'll call them attack pillars, attack vectors, really, that we sort of categorize within this service. I think the first thing to say, for those of you that may, from that technical background, a lot of historical SOCs or current SOC services out there require hardware. And that hardware can be quite an upfront investment. So the first thing to say is this requires no hardware. It's purely sort of a cloud-based, agent-based sort of software platform. So we put those agents on the various devices infrastructure. So we have your endpoints, those devices that your staff use. So your Windows desktop laptops, your Mac devices, etc. We currently Linux isn't supported at the moment, is on the roadmap, but for many businesses from an endpoint, a user endpoint, that's not something that we see. We have very few, if any, actually Linux devices. So it's very Windows and Mac. As I talked, is looking at your event logs, detections. It's running your AV that's on there, all the security protection that is actually on that endpoint device. All the logs from that are aggregated and sucked up and taken to the sort of the SOC platform. We then move into your infrastructure. So if you still have servers on premise or devices like that on premise, edge devices, your firewalls, your networking devices, and some of the your domain sort of DNS type services that I won't go into what DNS is if you're not familiar, but there's some sort of key key control that is required to make sure your browsing and your domain and your emails working properly. So that's all monitored. So it's almost, I guess that's the plumbing. I quite often refer to the network infrastructure as the plumbing of your business from an IT perspective. And then cloud applications, very specifically the Microsoft Cloud. So Microsoft 365 or Office 365, as it was previously referred to, and Azure AD, so the Microsoft cloud ecosystem. But that's critical, because that really is, and we're going to sort of come to that in a second, but that really is one of the key areas where we see, the threats. I'm going to just sort of guesstimate that probably 80, maybe in as high as 90% of the threats that we see within our client base sort of originate within the Microsoft 365 Azure AD, and primarily because it originates via email. That's a real key area to look at. So here a bit more detail. So what we'll do within that sort of Microsoft Cloud environment is to monitor your tenant accounts, where all your email addresses or your licenses are, for compromised emails, unauthorized rule forwarding. That's quite common, where somebody will, a bad actor will get into your sort of tenant account, and they won't do anything, but they'll set up email forwarding, so that you'll still receive your email, but all that email will effectively, a copy of that email will be forwarded to somewhere else, and from that they can harvest information, either to take advantage in some way, or to sell that information on to people who pay for it because it's of use to them. We monitor the dark web for any of those credentials, and then from the Azure AD, we look for any sort of malicious logons or forced logons, or just strange activity behaviors. If my business knows that I work in sort of the southeast of England area, so suddenly if I popped up in, I don't know, Russia trying to log into my Microsoft 365 account, that should be raising a flag, and that's exactly what this will do. So just going to move on quickly to a couple of the just some screen shares really, and some of these Marie will show a bit more in the platform demo, but some of the key sort of attributes that we've got here. So the Office 365 login analyzer. So you can see here the image on the right hand side is detected timestamp, a location, the username, and whether it's successful or failure. And obviously then we can alert off the back of that when the behaviour's looking not right. Threat hunting, this is quite key, and this is what we will show you, but everything I've talked about so far has been where we're analysing log events or information about activity that's happening. Threat hunting is really where we're are much more proactive, and we're out there searching for very specific information. So if, for example, there's a particular threat that ransomware or virus or activity of some description that's happening, there will be signs that we can look for. So we'll go hunting proactively for that, rather than just waiting reactive for something to be in and a log event to occur. We talked about firewalls. I think the one thing I really just wanted to highlight from this sheet here, if you look to the image, some of the blue text along the top, again, more relevant maybe for technical amongst us, you'll recognise some of the different brand names there. So really just to make the point that this SOC platform can integrate very well to the common brands and the common softwares that we'll be using amongst our infrastructure, so that we can monitor those properly for you. Detecting suspicious tools. So we all have our devices, increasingly laptop devices, and of course working from home outside the control of the corporate network and the controls that may be available there. And BitTorrent for sort of music streaming, or other tools, Bitcoin mining tools, etc. Some of these tools that the tools in themselves may not necessarily be a threat, but they're known to be, to carry or to be a door, an entry point into the device, and therefore your network for malware or other threats. So we're looking for those suspicious tools or programs to be installed or actually running on devices. The DNS I talked about earlier really is just to make sure that we're, I guess, through that, identifying type of network activity, either inbound or outbound of the network, and again flagging through on that. And cyber terrorists. So clearly, without necessarily naming any countries, there's if I put a poll up here now, we'd probably all come across a number of countries that would be top of the list, known to or were led to believe by our own governments, I guess, that are associated with sort of malicious activities. And or cybercrime. So any inbound or outbound connections of any description that occur with any of those sort of locations or IP addresses, network addresses, again, we're looking for those, and if we see those, they're flagged as well. Crypto mining, I talked about, as that's the sort of the Bitcoin, Ethereum. For those of you that I'm sure are trying to invest in the upturn in that at the moment, but it's not so much around the investment tools if you're doing that, it's around the tools that people are actually maliciously getting installed onto people's devices without their knowing, in order to effectively mine Bitcoin. And that in itself is a problem for a number of technical reasons, but again, it's more the fact that becomes a cover for malicious activity sitting behind that. So I'm conscious I've sort of whistled through those last few screenshots. Really just wanted to sort of set the scene on the platform. So I'm really going to sort of hand over to Marie in a second. But just to recap, this is a 100% cloud-based platform. So there's no hardware that needs to be installed. Agents simply onto the devices. We're obviously looking at protecting your endpoint, your core network infrastructure, and the cloud. Really easy integrations into the hardware and the software that you use within your infrastructure, and very easy sort of reporting of that out to ourselves as your MSP, but also visible to yourselves if you wish that. So Marie, let me change the screen. Let me just, bear with me, I shall just change the presenter over to Marie. Okay. Here we go. So it should be popping up with yourself.
Yes.
And let me tell you whether it's coming through.
Is it coming through?
Here we are. Yes, got you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, I do appreciate it, Graham. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I also thank the audience for taking the time to view this webinar. It is a crucial point that should be added to your list of your business. So now the world of ever-changing hacking has grown exponentially and will continue to grow. So protecting your keep and finding measures on prevention is a cybersecurity add-on to any small to medium-sized business. So this is rising to the business owners list of must-haves. Now, this is usually an underestimated benefit to an SMB. So regardless of the size of your business, it is your business and you work dearly to follow that dream. So let's protect your dreams, your investments, and your state of mind by adding a proper cybersecurity measure, which Graham had touched upon, of a security operations center known as a SOC. And that's what Rocket Cyber is. We are a SOC, and in addition to that, we are providing just more eyes on your day-to-day operations along with your current services. As we know, current services are just not enough with these days. Therefore, that addition of a SOC will complete the circle for the 24/7, 365 days a year of monitoring, detecting, and response for cybersecurity. So let's take a peek at the console and view the benefits built in. Graham had pointed out some high points. It is 100% cloud agent-based SOC. We are a managed 24/7 SOC located out in Dallas, Texas. We monitor 3 facets, what they're called the endpoints, the cloud, and the network. We also have multi-tenant view capabilities, which we will touch upon that a little bit later. This console is customizable from the root level all the way down to the device. So we will see a list of those features. Now let's just look upon the console and let's go through some of the apps. The apps that have been designed here, they're actually defined 2 ways. We have apps what we call our dependent apps, and then we have some that are called non-dependent apps. And what I mean by that is that the dependent apps are dependent upon your stack, what has been fed into our system that we will view from our SOC side. The non-dependent apps are the apps that have been strategically designed and are mission-driven to look for other types of threat detection. Graham had touched upon some high points that you see some activity. For example, crypto mining detection. That is based upon the Bitcoining activity, which we're starting to see an increasing amount of activity from that. Now, that could also lead to malware. So we designed an app to pick up that type of information. And here are results to kind of just see what activity has occurred. Another popular app is our cyber terrorist network. This is based upon viewing any type of terrorist embargo countries, but you also have the capability of turning on and viewing all the other countries and seeing what kind of activity we're seeing inbound or outbound. From the results here, you will see we've identified a lot of it with a color code. This color code will show this is suspicious activity. If we see anything in red, it's considered malicious activity, and then anything in blue is informational. Everything is always timestamped. We will identify the device. We will also identify as far as the IP or activity and the direction. Here, we're also identifying the country that we detected that malicious activity. And we do a reputation score. They're identified with dots. The more red dots, the more offenses. We can also read further by hitting details. That's going to show the findings of that particular malicious activity that we have detected. Now, our trained staff, SOC team, they are the ones that will be filtering through all of this activity. That is what their job is 24/7 to see what they find that would be considered an incident that we would have to notify you. Those incidences would be identified two ways, either through a ticket or through a phone call if it's that critical. And we will touch upon that in a moment. Let's go through a few more other apps that we have also designed. So as we scroll through Office 365, which tends to be a high point, which is also tends to be underlooked, we have 4 different applications. These 4 apps will look for login activity, to like email forwarding rules, to even seeing how you can improve your secure score. From there, another one I'd like to touch upon, because as our platform grows, the applications will grow as well to really continuously adding more eyes on your network. We have a suspicious tools. Here, what I'd like to point out is that we have enabling events. All of these applications by default have enabling events that we have turned on for you. You can go through each of them and also customize according to what your needs are. This is done at the root level, customer level, or at the device. And we will see that at the device level. So here you'll see enabling events. If there are certain activities that maybe they need to be turned on, you can do those. You can also do excluded paths or excluded IPs. So that is very helpful as far as a business owner or even as an MSP to be able to customize accordingly. Now
So,
we're going to
just jump in there. Yes. I think it is important to just to emphasize that point, but also to, I guess, balance it with you know, I guess consistency is a word I use. If we are trying to maintain security on an environment, if everything is configured consistently, then that makes it a lot easier to manage the exceptions. So it's a constant balance, I guess, between that consistency, but then having the ability to actually go down to that customizable, per user or per device level. So I think that's really important. It's great that we've got that functionality. I guess just a word of caution to everybody that we will try to keep things as consistent as possible, but where it's appropriate to do so, then we can work on that feature.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because not every business is the same. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We need to be able to work on that. Now, so those were just a list of some of the non-dependent apps. One of the dependent apps, for example, would be like Passly. Here, this would depend as far as your stack and being able to pretty much take the information that is coming from Passly, and now we are providing it on our side so our team can view that. So not only your stack is being monitored from your current vendor, but it's also, we're monitoring it here as well. So you will see the activity that we find from here. So all these applications here, this is where our SOC team is, this is where they're doing their job. They are what they're called triaging or threat investigation. Anything that they do find suspicious or malicious activity will surface up as an incident ticket. As you recalled, I had mentioned it either be as a ticket that will be sent to you via your dashboard, which will be located in this yellow box, or a phone call. Now let's explore some of the tickets that we have here. This will provide you information as far as if you have what we call a PSA, if you've done that connection, and we'll look on our integrations page there. All will be identified with a PSA icon saying that that information is also providing to you on your PSA side. Now, each ticket, our team will provide you what they call remediation steps here, and they have identified that particular incident. You have an action item button, and it will provide you whether you need to do a whitelisting or how to remediate it. Once you've taken care of this activity and see that you want to move forward, you can hit resolve. Now, all the information that is provided here will have all eyes for 30 days, so you'll be able to see this information. On day 31, it then goes into our 1-year log retention. So nothing ever gets deleted. The reason being is because we want to keep tabs on any archive information later in the future if that door knocking happens to persist a little bit further. So from this page, we can customize. Again, one of the other custom features is going to our application store. Here we can turn on or off the apps that apply to you. So you have that ability, which is quite nice. Again, can be broken down to the device level. If we hit some high points, we have Office 365 Manager. When we open up the screen, you're going to see the progression of your secure score. You'll see which accounts have 2FA and how to improve on your score through different controls. As the system is loading up from this point on.
Live demos, hey
Grant,
Marie?
you want to sing for me, Graham? While it loads, yes, typically it's the quicker turnaround.
Whilst we're waiting for that to load, actually, there's a couple of questions that come in, Marie. So one
okay,
from
perfect.
John is asking, okay, so this is really around the, because it's an agent that we install on devices. So I guess with those user devices, desktops, laptops, just making sure there's no concern over, I guess, performance impact on that device.
Oh, excellent question. No, the minimal of CPU usage is less than 1%. I mean, so you won't even know that the agent is on the device.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
That answers the question. Cool. Okay, so we've loaded. Brilliant.
So this is the screen, as I had mentioned. I really like how it's a quick overview and also the information that is provided to show you how to improve your score. It will say this is the max score and the description for that, even provided by customer. Next in line is our threat hunting, which Graham had also touched upon that. And this information that is here is a feed. So basically it's a repository of like malicious tool activity around the universe that is scanning the devices that we now have under management. So you will see there's a list of information. For example, like FireEye was really huge on that type of activity. Well, now that's in our feed. So if we see anything that has those points or any of those keywords, then we're scanning that information. It is scanned 24/7. We also support other feeds, for example, like Alien Vault, Reversing Labs, and Virus Total. So those are integrations that we can put into our system. Talking about integrations, we're going to touch upon here. We do support the top vendors on the PSA side. What advantage here is that you'd be able to provision a lot of those customers in bulk and also be able to communicate security tickets via your dashboard. Our layered security system has continued across here. This integration page is based upon API credentials, so the ease of just plugging in and updating, we'll be able to pull that information into our system. You can see we have threat intelligence, your antivirus, email security, dark web monitoring, or 2FA network, which is considered DNS, and then Microsoft, where we can pull in real-time activity to see if we see any business email compromise. Once we hit devices, this is going to show you as far as an inventory list of all the devices that you currently have in your network. Every time we hit details, it's going to give us a lot more information. Because of our SOC compliancy, we had to provide certain features to the auditor. And with that said, we also provided those features for you. So you have the ability to kind of just see what other activities are going on into your device. So if I hit software, for example, it's going to show me what device has been published on that particular device. We can see like password policies. I can even see shares, so I can look upon what devices have been connected to other devices. For example, if we had a disconnected from a device, I would have that ability to do so. So from here, I can also configure any of these applications on that device. So that gives you the luxury of being able to, again, customize everything according to your business needs. One thing you will find out with Rocket Cyber is that they are very much a forward-thinking company, and they try to look for other things to try to help for the business owner. You can conduct hunts from here as well, check out logs, or even do a quick scan on Defender. Now, going back to saying if we had to disconnect the device from the network, off to the side, we have a little gear section. This will allow you from here, a drop-down list. It will give you options to either restart an agent, update, uninstall the agent if necessary, and update the inventory. Then you can also disconnect or reconnect from the network from that particular device. Or if that device is no longer needed, then you can completely delete the device.
And Marie, that the disconnect from the network option, I guess, is effectively the device isolation. So if we detected a threat on a particular, say, desktop, but we need to disconnect from the network to stop it sort of propagating, that's effectively the functionality there.
That is correct. Yes, it'd be pretty much pulling it away from like into its own little island. Now, the agent is still on the device, just to be noted.
Yeah, that's cool.
So next on our little checklist is we have our All Customers tab. From here, you'll see a list of all your customers. It's a great checklist to see also how many devices per customer, Office 365 users, and any firewall. Now, we had talked about multi-tenant view capabilities. I can just hit switch and then I will be able to go to that screen. So from here, you can do different types of settings. So for example, I can go to customer settings and I can add permissions for anyone to either have full access of this console or viewing privileges, or even add notifications such as a phone number or an email address in case an incident does occur. That is available also at the provider level. So I can drop down here, hit provider settings, and enter my notifications as well, along with permissions from this point. Now, if I hit our Help Center, is an excellent knowledge base resource. So if there's ever a point where need more understanding on how to configure a particular application or integration, you kind of got to a stucking point, then this would be a great resource to be able to view and see what is available here. If ever at one point you have to submit a ticket to support, you would just fill out this request form, add your description of what the particular issue that you need to help get resolved. You can also identify it as severity and then submit that to our support team. So we go back to here.
That's great stuff. Okay, well, thanks for that, Marie. Let me, if I take back the screen, I'll just sort of a couple of final slides as we move through. So
Yes.
I think just important to say, obviously some of the functionality that we showed you there was functionality really that helps us as the MSP looking after you as our clients to make sure we're able to do so in a, I guess, an effective, efficient manner, rather than trying to actually juggle lots of different accounts and settings, etc., for the number of clients that we have providing the service for. So, but also that functionality Marie did just touch on, it's configurable. So primarily we'll be using that interface, but for those of you that want access into that, or certain members in your IT team, for example, that may need access into that, completely configurable, view only, access certain, I guess, modules. So I thought it was important to show that functionality for you there. So conscious of time, I think we're a couple of minutes over. So I think the final couple of points I wanted to make was, how this helps you sort of maintain your sort of regulatory and compliance requirements. Clearly, here in the UK, we've got GDPR, PCI, and various other sort of, I guess, industry-related governance requirements, and a couple of more sort of US-centric ones there. So, and that becomes, that 1 year retention, that log retention becomes quite important then, not only to be able to actually look back at a point in time for, I guess, a threat investigation or a breach investigation, but actually to help maintain some of the sort of regulatory requirements that you'll have. So finally, a couple of points here. I'm going to sort of skip through this a little for time. This is recorded. I'm quite happy to share this deck. So with all those of you in attendance, so that you've got half a dozen or so quick points there that will help you to understand what to look for in a SOC when you're sort of comparing providers. And really, from me, it really is just to thank you really for your time. Thank you, Marie, for spending your sort of hour or so with us this morning.
I appreciate it.
And I really next steps, everyone, for those of our clients that are on the call here, then reach out to sort of your account manager, or indeed myself. Got my email address on the screen there, and if you're interested, I would really suggest a sort of a probably more in detailed discussion and demo with your account manager and Marie to I guess show you a little bit more about how we can provide this service in a way that relates to your specific business, the technology stack that you have, and email me after this if you're interested in a free setup voucher. There is normally a charge for the sort of the setup, the onboarding process, but for those that are in attendance today, just drop me an email and I'll confirm that we'll waive that for you. If you go ahead with the service, that's about as sales as I'm going to get today. I hope that's been useful. There are a couple of other questions that's come in. I can see one from Hannah, Pete, and one other there. So I'll respond to those questions directly via email later on this afternoon or tomorrow, worst case. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Marie, for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, thank you.